Nominating Committee, Marcia, Chair, Norina, and Barbara. But everyone who's in favor of this motion, please signify by raising your hand or saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously at 6:13.
So with that, Madam Chair, the current members of the nominating committee have fulfilled their obligations under the bylaw. It's been wonderful.
Thank you, Marcia. All right, now we are at the board authorizations and resolutions. And is there a preference to do these individually or as a group? We have library attorneys, Durbin and Palazzo, library insurance brokers, 10 Ike Insurance and Marshall and Sterling, library auditors, Marvin Company, official newspaper, the Altamont Enterprise, and authorizations of petty cash fund of $535 is established. Well, maybe we should do the library attorneys, library insurance brokers, library auditors, and official newspaper as a group. And the authorizations as a group. Is that okay with everyone? So do I have a motion for library attorneys, library insurance brokers, library auditors, and official newspaper?
So moved.
Barbara? Second? Enough? All in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously at 6:15 p.m. Now the authorizations, a petty cash fund of $535 is established. The fiscal officer and the library director are authorized to enter into an agreement with NBT Bank and or Capcom Federal Credit Union for electronic transfers of funds between library accounts. The board authorizes payment of some time-sensitive bills by hand-drawn check or electronic payment between board meetings. Do I have a motion for those authorizations I just run? Barbara? Is there a second? Please. Okay, all in favor of the motion for the authorizations, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, passes unanimously at 6:16. All right, last one is annual resolutions. First motion, to accept the resolution that the board shall approve claims prior to payment in accordance with the claims approval procedure of the library, and that such approval shall be documented in the board minutes. Claims for public utility services, freight and express, payroll, postage, and associated expenses, and certain other expenses may be paid upon the approval of the director or assistant director prior to the approval by the board. All such claims shall be presented at the next regularly scheduled board meeting for audit and approval by the board. This resolution shall be effective immediately. Do I have a motion for approval of that first motion? Marcia, second? Mike? Okay, all in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, passes unanimously at 6:17. The second motion to accept the resolution that to the extent permitted by law and regulation for any month in which no meeting of the trustees is scheduled to occur, the board delegates its authority to the president or other officer to audit and approve payment of those claims for which costs will be incurred as a result of payment in an untimely manner. All such claims shall be presented at the next regularly scheduled board meeting for audit and approval by the board. This resolution shall be effective immediately. Is there a motion to approve them? Mike? Second? Alicia? All right, all in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand. Are you not?
Can I just,
Aye.
sorry, can I just ask a question?
Oh, sure.
Are we anticipating that we'll have meetings? I mean, we will skip meetings, or is this like a regular thing that we always approve at the annual meeting?
You mean if we're not having a,
Yeah,
right, I think when we come to the, meeting schedule, I think there was a question mark on the December meeting. You want to have a December meeting or not?
Okay.
It's up to the board as to whether you want to have a meeting and the time is
okay.
busy for a lot of people, but. So, that motion, did we vote on that motion yet?
No, we were just voting and I just had a question.
Oh, okay. Yes, all in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand, and saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? 19. Now, there are the annual policies, which I think we have to vote on them. We just have to sign them and return them to Jenna. Correct? Okay, so that's just something that we need to individually sign and return to Jenna by the end of the meeting. All right. Annual committee reports, I think were attached to this.
Yeah, after the policies.
Okay, all right. So, we should all have the annual reports and all the committees. Is there any reason to go through them, or are they self-explanatory? Have had a chance to look at those. Great. There's nothing else that anyone needs to discuss regarding the committee reports. I think we're adjourning a little quickly. Is there a motion to adjourn the annual business meeting? Marcia?
Second.
All in favor of adjournment? Say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, the annual meeting is adjourned at 6:21. Now we are not scheduled to start our other meeting until 6:30. So I guess we all have time to sign our ethics.
Coffee break. Just so you have your own and. I don't think the little key fobs are working. It's. Are they working? They have to be reactivated. Oh. So he was looking for the mail, that we could get an extra copy of that.
Do you have a fob?
No.
You might have to reset it. When I came to pick up my board packet, it didn't work on the door and then they took me out. In your mailbox. Weirdly, they took me outside. I got in through the back door and it like made it work.
Here, mine too, Joe.
The woman
That's
at the
where the
checkout desk
reset.
just like let me in when
You have it
I do.
and it didn't work.
It didn't work. Yeah,
Do
like,
you want to go reset it? I can show you.
oh, you know how to do it? Certainly.
I had
I thought it was like a complicated.
No,
I
no,
couldn't
no,
speak
no.
to someone.
No, they're like, yeah, we can do it.
Okay.
Version.
Yeah, I
Well,
find it-
well, you-
The architect just wanted to put the counter in. Oh, the counter in. Didn't show me.
Done. Because I don't want to go outside.
No.
Oh, yeah.
It did seem like kind of like, not that I've done like a ton of work with architects, but it did seem like very counterintuitive. I was like, normally you run plans by someone, they go, okay. But even Tim said he had, it's like, I would have stopped that.
Weird.
I was like, that's weird,
I
right?
mean, of course, we didn't have
Correct.
anybody in line,
Yes.
but nevertheless, we should have had a discussion about what we were looking for.
Well, and that was the whole selling point at the beginning, even before we had the mock. It was like, oh, whatever we get, can we weigh in on the design and make it.
Well, not if we can.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, you know?
Yeah, well, it doesn't sound like they need to do a lot to.
No.
I would assume they do the baking on the premises and bring stuff here. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's
delicious.
Isn't that good?
It's really good. Did you taste it? It's really good.
That's my favorite. I asked her, 'cause she was just gonna bring the crinkles, and I was like, please bring the guava pastries.
I put cookies and cupcakes, but you know, I put it in that and the delivers.
You never know.
Fantastic.
Different tastes.
I
for
didn't
different
realize they were
folks,
coming.
So, I'd sent it like a quick email, it was like last minute, because I know we had like a really, really big agenda, and then originally they were going to be on it, but it was just like, it wasn't like run through proper channels, and it was like probably the wrong meeting for it, so, you know, beefy of a meeting, so I asked, you know, Kathy and Tim, like, hey, can they come like just for 30 minutes before? Because I feel it's nice to have like face to a name, right? Like when we're talking about it.
I'm gonna try to get to the restaurant.
You should, so on, during the summer on Friday nights, they do Eat in the Street, and they do like a like special menu like every Friday.
Oh.
In this past Saturday, they did a Filipino night, so I went and I got like a bunch to go, and literally like there's like little ladies coming with like all their Tupperwares, and they like fill up with food because they don't do it that often. So like the entire, like, I think I was standing in line for 30 minutes just to get food.
Oh.
But it's worth it. It was worth it. So I like filled up a bunch of containers, and I was like, you can sit there. Yep, that's great. But they all come from like a professional chef.
My
background, so-
apologies, everyone. I don't know, pick up, and I don't know why it didn't connect, but it did.
I'm sorry, I meant to sneak out one more time.
I did. Yeah, I don't know what was going on.
I mean, I guess because I'm on Teams for every single day, I have it, so I have, but I have a work phone, so I have it like on my this phone, I have a personal
Yeah,
phone.
it's really,
Really kind
and they're just so happy.
Like, it's just,
Like they're so- you did it in a great
yeah,
mistake.
it remind me of some flavors, remind me of like, you know. Almost like a well, so I used to be a secretary, so maybe that's why.
She was great.
Yeah.
But she didn't do it because I was so busy. So this stuff took-
But like, I feel like that's kind of starting, so like, I'm the project manager, but the project coordinator is kind of like.
That's from the cafe.
The
or
folks
from
that
the
are
whole
bidding
cafe.
on the cafe brought those like amazing traffic and stuff like that. I was like, please introduce yourself.
She was.
You sat down, but I'm sorry.
I was like, I can
Nice
draw
to
it in
meet you.
words. It's not gonna look very great. And I know everything's like.
Whatever.
I mean,
Why it happened, what happened.
she anticipated what I needed.
Wow.
Uh,
The coordinator.
I just.
Oh, okay.
Just finished my first year.
Okay.
I'm attorney for the next 2 months, and I like absorbed all that white back, and I was like, wait, how did you do that?
No, that was not,
it's-
that was.
No, it's not better. It's very disappointed.
No.
Yeah. We didn't say anything there. In person.
Hi.
How's it going?
Hey, all right.
It's funny, I've met your wife in this before you.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, no, I understand.
He's like, I'm tired
I'm
of
not
it.
sure this one does.
Well, I didn't know y'all knew Amy, too, in Harbison.
I don't know.
You don't know Amy? Oh,
No.
I guess from track. Really forward, we're gonna have to know each other.
Great.
Track, your kids do track, right?
Yeah, maybe I met her, but I
Yeah.
don't, the name doesn't sound familiar.
If you saw her face, maybe.
We're live.
What?
We're live. I was letting you know.
Yeah, the mics are still on.
No, it's okay. I was just making sure you were aware.
Oh. I'm gonna talk about it on TV. I just thought it was like a very small bitty moment.
No.
Still looking up.
Anytime.
Excuse me, I'm just trying to, I can't see everybody's name tag in this one.
Well, they're just last names, so it only matters. It helps.
Yes.
Thanks. Doing the you.
That's the thing.
Oh.
I'm gonna need a bath after reading this.
I know.
It's delicious.
I like your top, Marcia. It's really pretty.
Yeah, you know, put this a few years ago and I remember, I think it was Marshall. And when you see something, you go,
Yeah.
that's it.
It's beautiful.
I love it.
It's always like, those are always the pieces, and then someone asks you and you're like, haha, too bad,
Yeah,
you
I
can't,
go to.
you can't get more.
I can untuck it,
Yeah. It's very pretty.
Thank you.
We reached that 2 weeks of summer too, where it's
Why?
impossible to figure, we reached that 2 weeks of summer where it's impossible to figure out how to dress, where the air conditioning.
I don't go out a lot. I'm mostly in my
Brought my
pajamas.
jacket.
No.
No, I went to Sam's Club and I immediately regretted not having a sweater. I was like,
Is there a Sam's Club?
yeah, Sam's Club, BJ's.
I know about BJ.
All right, I have 6:29. Is everyone ready to get started on the monthly business meeting for July 21st? All right. Have the call to order. Again, 1 minute early, 6:29. I will call the meeting to order. And we'll pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is to approve the minutes from June 16th, 2022. Are there any extensions?
Our new members who all.
That's true, new members obviously abstaining. So do I have a motion to approve the minutes from June 16th, 2022? Barbara, is there a second?
Second.
Mike? All right. All in favor of the motion to approve the minutes, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Is 6:31. All right, is there any public input session for this evening?
None at this time.
Okay. All right, personnel action. I think we had a new personnel action item. Do you have that? Oh, okay. Thank you. All right, to approve the appointments as Olivia Knowles, part-time librarian 1 in the Programs and Public Services Department, effective June 29th, 2022, with a pay rate of $24.97 an hour, up to 20 hours a week. And Diane Bruins, part-time senior clerk in the Access Services Department, effective July 5th, 2022, with a pay rate of $22.84 an hour, 16 hours a week. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve those appointments.
Thank you.
Second.
Sorry, Vanessa? Okay, great. Favor of the motion to approve the personnel actions, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Right. If we look at the minutes, we had, I should probably note that there were 3 abstentions. All right, so now we have treasurer's report for,
Excuse me, Captain. Wouldn't it be 2 abstentions because Alicia was technically on the board?
that's correct. Sorry.
Wait, there's 4 of us.
There's 4 of you.
But the
Joanne-
board is
Joanne's
not
not
here.
Not here.
That's right, Joanne's not here, so there's 1, 2, so I'm. All right. That makes sense. Thank you.
No problem. I want to give you credit for your work today.
Well, you're right, there were All right, the treasurer's report for June and I believe for is virtual. Yes, very.
Tell me.
You may be on mute.
You're muted.
How about now? That's probably better. You can hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I apologize. I couldn't be there in person. We're in Western New York for a high school class reunion. But I wanted to present the report. I met with David and Tim earlier in the week and we went over the report, and the report was sent out, I know, earlier this week. And there's just a few lines that I wanted to highlight as, I hate to use the word unusual, but just different. And on the first page, going down about, I don't know, 12 lines or so, there's revenue recorded, a very large amount of revenue recorded, 862,604 for New York State grants. And this is something that I believe Tim worked on during the prior month so that he could get it cleaned up and booked. They are capital grants, which means that we received the grants and we're required to spend them for capital projects, not with capital projects outside of the scope of the building project, basically. And he's gone through and been able to verify that we have spent the money and filed the reports for 2 DLD grants, and I believe is going to file the report for a SAM grant very shortly. And I think the thing about capital grants that we have to keep in mind is that this shows up as revenue, but since capital, when we purchase it, it shows up as on the balance sheet as fixed assets, it really sort of inflates our income for this period. So when we get to the bottom line, it's going to be very large, but it doesn't mean that we have that amount of money to spend or it's free resources because it was spent on grants. And we'll also see the effect on the balance sheet of this. So that's one item that was obviously fairly large. On the third page, just to talk a little bit about, there was a question last month about technology software that it was very high. And when you look at the year to date, it's about 62,000 versus a budget of 10,000. And Tim looked at this, and I believe that this related to RFID technology software that was part of the system for the automated, I'm going to say check in and check out. And we may not have fully anticipated that amount of expense when we put the original budget together. There's two other items which sort of offset each other, but going down almost to the last line, there's a budget that shows up for capital improvements of 88,900. And essentially, when the budget is put together for purposes of the tax levy, we make an estimate of how much we'll be spending in capital improvements. And it's kind of the reverse logic when I said that, you know, the grants are revenue, but the expense doesn't get recorded. The same is true here, that when we make a capital improvement, it's not going to hit the balance sheet, but we have to be able to purchase them. So, you know, I think that the purpose of including them in the budget for the levy purpose is to make sure that we have enough funds available to purchase new assets. So there is not an actual that offsets that line item, but when we add that line item in, it does agree to the budget. The 4097 are the expenses that we used in developing the tax levy of, I believe it was 4,055,000. So it's offset by some other income. So that's just kind of an entry to bring the budget in. And I mentioned last month that what we don't book during the year is the actual depreciation expense. So on one side, we build it into the budget so that we have enough resources to purchase the items. But once they're purchased, depreciation expense is just taking the asset and recording an expense over the useful life of the asset. So that part of it doesn't require cash. So we book it once a year, and it was $109,000 for the year. So when I mentioned, when you look at the bottom line, the year-to-date actual is 1,171,000 as net income. But when you back out the capital grant, it's about 309,000, which is closer to what we were talking about last month as an estimate, favorable to budget. And last month, and I'll do the same now, I'll remind you that, when the auditors come in, there's a number of pension entries that get booked. So that number could probably go either way. And I think it's hard to say what the pension liability calculations will calculate out this year just because of the changes in the market and everything. So that number is certainly far from being final. On the balance sheet, the things that I point out is that up underneath assets, current assets, there are grants receivable now of 311,000. So that 862,000 in revenue consisted of really two parts. One part they had already paid us for, almost 551,000. They paid us funds previously, and that was sitting in deferred revenue. And deferred revenue is just a category where when you get cash in, but you haven't earned it yet, it goes into deferred revenue, so it sits as a liability. And you won't see it on the balance sheet this month because it was eliminated. It was on the balance sheet last month, and this month it's eliminated. So the 862,000 in revenue consists of the deferred revenue that's now been recognized as revenue, and a receivable of 311,260 that we will be collecting. So I think those are the most significant items on both the income statement and the balance sheet. We also reviewed the check register or a disbursement register at the time. And, I don't think there's anything unusual within the disbursements. And I think last month we agreed that that the procedure to approve the check register should be reinstated. So I think that I would ask for a motion to approve the check register for July, if I can do that.
Sure. Is there a motion to approve the check register for July 2022? Barbara? Is there a second?
Second.
Cory, okay. So Barbara. Cory. All right, all in favor of the motion to approve the check register for July 2022, please signify by raising your hand, saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is anyone opposed? All right, motion passes at 6:42 p.m.
And I just wanted to say, normally I like to stay for the meeting, but we have a commitment related to the reunion. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to sign out. But thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
To directors and department heads reports for June. When I think it should be 2022.
I have some notes from Tim. At the beginning of the month, we did our staff development day. It was so successful that we're looking to do a mini break for our department heads, a mini retreat. We're bringing back one of the speakers, Brock Herzog. He's from the Owls Library System. That's going to be October 19th We're going to do a team building exercise in the morning at the regional food bank, and then we're gonna come back, have lunch together, and Ron's gonna do another speech for us. Excuse me. One of the big things that started was actually most recently in July, but our farmer's market started. I don't know if anyone has been able to go, but it's been fabulous. I've gone every time, and it's wonderful to see the parking lots full. Everybody's really enjoying it. The Facebook comments are blowing up. It's really great to see it. We started working on performance evaluations for the staff, a team of department heads and myself, Beth Rianti and Lisa Pickin. We worked to create a new form, and we had a schedule set to start doing performance evaluations. Unfortunately, with negotiations coming up, we didn't realize that the form is actually part of negotiations. So right now it's sitting, waiting to be used. We are able to use our employee incident reports to continue to do daily evaluations. We were able to do our collection reconfiguration. We did close for half the day, and when you walk out, it's this whole front part here that was rearranged. We had a fantastic team to do that. That was Christina Ronald, Kathleen Tyrell, and Holly Andrew. It was a fantastic effort. They planned it down to the minute. I was really, really impressed. And there's pictures of it on Facebook too, of us working together in all of our like sweatpants and everything. And it was actually a really fun event. We were trying to see how many DVDs we could put in our hands at once. It was like becoming a competition. So it might be at our next staff development day. Our public informant officer, Luann, has stated that our newsletter or emails open rate has gone up to 53%. Circulation has jumped in triple digits for adult, kids, and YA, and our DVDs. We have several dozen new library cards with first graders due to a collaboration visit with our youth services department to the Guilderland Elementary. 3 of our staff members, Amy McCarthy, Tim Wiles, and Seth Strock, actually are on the Upper Hudson Library System Racial Equity Committee. And they just put on a system-wide program with author Alice Green. It was an author talk and discussion that happened virtually. We did summer reading program kickoff with numbers over close to 300 in registration. And it was our first ever adult summer reading program opening. And special shout out to Michelle Conti for decorating. And if you have a chance, please walk into the children's room. A lot of her decorations and her drawings are all over, and the screens have her media on there, and they're just fantastic graphics. And we also would like to thank the foundation for providing some funds for the summer reading program kickoff. IT is working on cybersecurity, so that's one of the reasons we've been asking you guys to just use your Guilderland emails for Guilderland business, because we're concerned about cybersecurity. They're investigating the multifaceted authentication and trying to figure out what the best way to do that is. And last but not least, the air conditioning is fixed. So that's it for June.
Good day.
Thank you. Can I just comment for a second, Kathy? I had a chance to participate in the kickoff of the adult summer reading, and it was really just fantastic to be in the library. People were excited. It looked amazing. And so I just wanted to say congratulations to the staff. I mean, it got myself included excited to read, so I have no doubt that the circulation increased. I definitely took out extras, and so it was just really nice to see after, you know, a bit of time away from the library.
And staff is feeling it too. They're saying it feels like old times.
Yeah.
And they were so excited to go to the school and see the kids. So they're very excited too. Oh, Tim Riley has his hand up.
Yes, Tim. Tim Riley, questions?
It's just a high five.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a high five.
Great, then we're going to committee reports. Cafe committee is not really currently not really a committee right now. I'm the only one left on it. So we haven't had a meeting, had that nice lunch with the folks who are going to be doing a soon. And I also have a design committee. I don't really have much to add to the, anything to add to the report. Because design committee has met and won't be meeting, and then as it's that separate committee anymore. That's the, and as you will see when you see the new committees that cafe and design are folded into buildings and grounds, because hopefully neither one of them will require much as the construction project is done. Less need for design, and I think any lingering construction issues could be handled by that committee. Labor management also, I think I mentioned most recent meeting in the annual report. So I really don't have anything to add to that either. And then the COVID committee, which I don't think.
COVID Action Committee hasn't met.
That's still a going committee, unfortunately, since COVID's still around. Foundation.
So the foundation itself hasn't met, although the committee of myself, Alicia, and Natalie, Luann, and Anne from the foundation, we have met, I don't know if twice since the last meeting, but at least once. That the last one was not so well attended because I think it was just a miscommunication and scheduling, but we've had numerous emails back and forth, and plans are definitely moving along for an event in October. Super excited. The foundation's already approved the budget for the band that's going to be coming in for the adult first. And we just have a lot of details to work through for the adult evening and the kids evening, but everything's moving smoothly so far.
Sounds like it's going to be a great time. Yeah.
I have numbers for you later. It might be.
Yeah. And UHLS. We have an appointment to make. Corey, thank you so much for volunteering to be on our UHLS rep. And do I have a motion to appoint Corey to this position? Marcia, second. Paige. And is there, and everyone in favor of appointing Corey to this position, please signify by saying aye. Aye. I take it there's no one opposed. Thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
Thanks for volunteering.
You'll be giving us some committee reports at our next meetings. So that's 6. All right. Is there any old business? Anyone have any old business they want to bring up?
Let me ask a question. Obviously I'm new to this, and I'm sure it's somewhere in the agenda, the portion related to the code of ethics, where does that show up in here?
That's the annual meeting. In the annual meeting, we didn't have to approve it, but it just exists that we sign it at the annual meeting. We
So
sign.
Is that a subject of discussion or not?
Well, I don't know, that was part of the other meeting. It's the conflict of interest policy and the,
I imagine that would happen at the committee level, right? For the policy committee, if there's like a change.
Yeah, if we're changing them, maybe, I think you are slated to be on the policy committee.
I'm on it.
There you go.
Yeah.
I believe.
You have a question about?
I've had a couple of quick questions. May I? So on the code of ethics for officers, section 3, standards of conduct. It says, section 3A2, uphold the principles of intellectual freedom and responsibly consider any effort to censor library resources. It felt a bit vague to me. The meaning of responsibly consider, it's not spelled out in any way. I have no idea really what it means. And censor library resources also is a bit vague. We don't know who is censoring and what constitutes censorship or an attempt to censor. So I'm just kind of curious whether there is something behind this that explains it.
So like, I guess we have two other policies. There's a freedom to read policy and a freedom to view policy, which set forth kind of the library's policy of having just of upholding a broad right for people to be able to access a wide variety of different viewpoints and I mean, these are obviously things that we can, I haven't looked at them recently that should be up for review to make sure that they represent, what we want to be putting forth. But we do have those other two policies that I think are kind of behind, it would kind of give a little more context to.
So that responsibly consider, that's spelled out in some other document or what that means?
I don't know that specifically is, so it's,
That might be a job for the policy committee.
I think,
Look at that.
I think it sounds good. I'm not in any way opposing it, but I have no idea where the rubber meets the road, what that looks like. So so maybe in terms of the policy committee, that could be brought up. The other question that I had was on section B, section 3B, the category of confidential information. And it says under confidential information, he will not disclose confidential information acquired in the course of his or her official duties or use such information to further his or her personal interests. And then there's another reference about he or she shall not disclose information regarding any matters discussed in executive session of the Board of Trustees, whether such information is considered confidential or not. So in that first reference, he or she shall not disclose confidential information acquired in the course of his or her official duties. Again, it just strikes me as somewhat vague what constitutes confidential information. Is confidential information designated as such in some formal process? Or is it any conversation that we have as a board, or is it only when we go to executive session? Where does this arise?
Well, right now, we're in public session, so everything is discussed, is being broadcast. So I think in executive session, obviously that's going to be confidential information.
So it's only in that context.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
I could imagine a scenario where two board members maybe are having a discussion, which doesn't qualify as like, doesn't violate open meetings because it isn't, a critical mass, or in your conversation with the library director personally. I think that there are a few instances where something that is sensitive in nature and not public information could be exchanged, and the expectation is that you don't spread it.
I would I would be interested in seeing that fleshed out a bit,
Sure.
because it sounds very discretionary and potentially arbitrary and capricious in terms of what constitutes confidential information. One could find themselves on the wrong side of the line by accident or inadvertently, thinking that they're actually in service to the board, when in fact they might, in the view of some at the table, be betraying a confidence, and which I don't think anybody wants to do. But if there isn't any guidance as to what is confidential, like the things that you mentioned,
I think the caveats for personal interest, right? To promote
So
personal
it's-
or personal interest or gain, right?
so that's the definition. I mean, if it doesn't inure to my benefit personally, either in some pecuniary fashion or otherwise, then it would not be confidential.
I don't think so. I think there might
Between these.
Yeah, and I think we can probably talk further when the policy committee meets,
Right.
which I'm going to be chairing in this next term.
Mhm.
I certainly think it would be appropriate for us to look at those issues and discuss as a committee, and then bring back some recommendations.
There's an or between the personal gain and the disclosure of personal information. So it's not an and. That puts a little bit of a different spin on it, but
But let's
if you're
take a
on the
look at
policy committee.
Yeah.
Ted,
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So we'll do it in committee work.
Okay.
I'm
Thank
guessing
you.
this
Sounds like it would be a very well-written policy.
I think this was probably taken from years and years of experience and from another library or something, but absolutely it's worth looking at. The problem is going to be to define this.
The
And
problem will be that,
definitions, which are going to be difficult, but
Right.
it's certainly something we should look at.
right,
Is there any other old business that anyone wanted to discuss? All right, so we'll move on to new business. First order of business is to discuss our board meeting dates for 2022 and 2023. And I noticed that there's an asterisk after the attendance as a discussion. So I don't know what people think about having a December meeting or not having a December meeting. I think. Barbara?
It's like the third to last.
I'm also looking at the August meeting. It would only be about 2 weeks after the July meeting because, we're meeting third week in July. And, no, it wouldn't be,
No, it's a
no, it's the same time span. But for many, many years, we didn't meet in August or December. December because people were so busy with all kinds of activities. And in August, what we found is that so many people were on vacation, it was hard to get people together, but now we have video conferencing and things like that. But I wouldn't be opposed to, a discussion on either of those days. We went back to meetings in August when we had the building project because there was just so much going on, for the last like 2 or 3 years. And so, we could at least consider it, not planning a meeting for those 2 days.
I think the bylaws require a minimum of 6 meetings plus an annual. So that's 7 meetings. That's by the bylaws. 6 meetings a year plus the annual meeting.
Right.
So
So
that's 7 days
easily
that we have to
fulfills
have by
that-
the bylaws.
Easily
So
fulfills
the
that
rest is
requirement.
flexible.
I was thinking August, the question would be, there's a quorum. I know a lot of people are away at different times in August, but not necessarily all the same week. So, how do people feel about August? And would we,
I personally
have a
can't
quorum?
attend. I'll be out of the country, so I would be in favor of dropping the August.
I mean, is there anything
The only thing
That's
coming up
pricing.
in August is it would be I think we pushed the cafe thing to that meeting, right?
Mhm.
So would we do just a special session for?
Well, I think, I'm not sure, in terms of when I was thinking that in terms of looking at a draft contract, maybe it would be the Building and Grounds Committee that might, look at the draft. I wasn't typically, the board would approve the final contract. So I wasn't sure what exactly that was. What was being brought to the board in terms of the contract for the cafe.
I don't know, I haven't seen.
I think probably the cafe committee would make a recommendation for approval to the board, but I think the whole board would have to vote on the contract.
Right.
Right, but I think the question is the timing, like, would,
Yeah.
before August 18th, would we have had a building committee make
Right.
recommendations? Will we have the build out resolved? That I don't know.
And if we go for a full-blown cafe, it could be changes, so, I don't know what their timing is either, or changes if we go for
Like-
full,
Like when they wanted to,
yeah.
so maybe it wouldn't,
Do we
it
know,
wouldn't
the-
even be ready by August.
do we know the target date that they'd like to start here?
Did they say when they were thinking of starting? You know?
Do you know what? Because I was not a part of any initial
So I think-
discussion since I wasn't on the committee.
In the beginning, they were hoping to get in
Yeah.
July, but
Yeah.
I think that got pushed out. So from what Tim had told me, I think their goal is October because they have another project going on in August that they're tied up with.
I haven't seen the contract. Is it being worked on?
Yeah, I think it's been going back and forth in emails between Chris Lanchat and Tim Wiles and Kathy. Are you on those emails too?
Yeah, I think it's in a draft form. It looks like it's taking shape, but it sounds like there's a lot of things that they are, like when they gave a little presentation, it sounded like they were interested in different configurations or something like that. So that would probably be reflected in a contract. So if it's October, that gives the committee plenty of time to meet and think about this.
Yeah, I was just curious because it looks like I'm chairing. I apparently volunteered for it, I didn't know. But no. So yeah, I was just curious if like the stars aligned and we had something to propose without that meeting there, like would that mean it gets pushed to September? Could we like do a
I
quick
guess it depends on
call?
if the committee wants to meet quickly and meet with them or
Because I imagine that needs to be finalized before like configuration changes can happen, which would need to happen before it
And
opens.
should be in the
So,
contract. It should be.
right.
But
But
I
if they
think-
agree on the contract, then stuff can start moving in that direction. But if we wait to get the contract approved to September, that gives them a couple weeks to open.
except I think configuration changes might have to be with part of the contract. Because if we're doing something really different, we probably want to put it in the contract with.
No, I'm not disagreeing. What I'm saying is once that's all like locked down, they would need time to then implement those
Oh, correct.
configuration changes to
Correct.
be able to open
Right.
before
But then
October.
if it required a little construction or something,
Well, that's
yes,
it.
then it
Right.
would take time, you're right.
That's the thing. That was the concern with pushing it to the 15th and then opening in October. That just leaves a couple weeks. I don't think the best architect could turn that around that
We
quickly.
could always, if the contract was ready and we wanted to do it sooner, we could always have a special meeting to.
That's
approve
what I was
it.
asking with,
Yeah, I mean,
That
we
would
do
be
that,
my
we do
only-
that frequently, to approve contracts and that sort of thing. Yes,
Just
Barbara.
a question. The two things that she mentioned was moving the counter out a little bit more
Mhm.
so that you could, like a wheelchair person or two people could be working back there. And again, that I don't think is a real difficult. We could ask Megan. And the other thing they're looking for is a door, if that's possible, into the kitchen. That used to be there, isn't there anymore, or just a pass-through window. And again, they could work around that and go out the door and go in the door, from the meeting room. So they could still open. It wouldn't be the ideal situation, but I'm saying I don't think that would delay their starting because they still have access to the kitchen
Mhm.
and, just be able, they have to walk the food out instead of passing it through.
Well, when I recall when the counter was built, I think it was built to be somewhat movable. You know, it wasn't like completely fixed in place where
I
you
think it
couldn't
could be-
move it. Cause I think that was a thought that it was whoever took the
Space.
cafe contract would want to configure the space to suit their.
My understanding it's bolted, but you would have to repair some tiles on the floor if they moved it. That's it. I don't know, I don't want to say that's it, like that's nothing,
It's
because
a
I'm not a
relatively
construction
minor,
person.
I think
but-
it was relatively minor, and then there was also a way to configure it, to put like displays and that sort of thing on it, and that's what I remember.
Yeah,
from
I
design
remember that
committee.
too. And it was segmented or something if you wanted to take
Yeah.
out.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was,
that's easily incorporated into a contract,
Yeah,
but the language can say is made specifically to run full-blown cafe, whatever the language is, and then you could just attach appendix 1, which says the following will be done in terms of construction. It's not a big deal. The timing is the more important thing.
yeah. So I think I'm fine with skipping the meeting if, like I said, stars align and we get the contract squared away sooner rather than later to give them more time to, gradually build up the space instead of frantic. I don't know. That would be my only thing that I can see coming up in August, but.
My 2 cents. I don't have a strong feeling about August. If we think August 18th is an unrealistic date for having something that we can vote on, then maybe, that's fine, and we'll just have a special meeting if we need it. In general, and I'd say this for like the December one, I would prefer to just keep the meeting on the calendar because, we never know what's going to arise between now and then and what things we may have to vote on, things we have to take care of. And I'd rather people be able to plan and have that date on their calendars in advance than trying to do, because there's been emergency meetings in the past where various people just aren't unable to make it because of their schedule, because it was last minute and there's little notice. So I'd rather, and worst case scenario, if there's nothing important going on, we have a very short meeting and that's not a big deal. I'd rather be able to plan in
Keep
advance.
both of them on the December and the
I
August.
would definitely keep the December just because it's far enough out, people can get it on their calendar and who knows what timing of things, what we're gonna need to vote on. If we need the meeting for anything important, I would just keep it on there. August, I would probably be inclined to just keep it on there. But if people think that the main important thing we need to vote on in the near future is that what we need to vote on to get the cafe in place, and it's unrealistic that August 18th, that we're going to have that to vote on, so we're going to have a special meeting anyway, then maybe it's not worth having that if we're going to plan to have a special meeting anyway and have to get that done. But I could go either way on that, but I would, it's just me. I think I would probably just keep them both on the calendar, but I could go either way on the August if people have a strong feeling the other way.
We can also cancel it.
So I don't want to be the kid that asks for more homework, but I think leave it on because, if we don't have much, then we could cancel, I would think. But I am concerned with the cafe and I don't want to push it out because it's important. It's people's time. Everyone's invested into getting this project done. So I think we should just work as hard as possible to get it done. If they don't have a contract by that date, they'll cancel. I think we should keep it on.
Instead of trying to schedule somebody on another
Canceled
day,
if
keep
it's-
everyone
if
on
it's-
another
Nothing's
day.
happening to require the August meeting, you could always pull it off.
So just cancel your vacation
And you could.
It's already rescheduled here.
Fly back.
well, I think,
It's just me.
in our August meeting this year, I think we had a quorum, but just a quorum, I think, maybe, I'm not sure, but there was a lot of people busy, but, we did have a quorum, so, I'm fine with keeping all the meetings on the calendar, and then, I agree that it's easier to cancel a meeting than to try to schedule one at the last minute, so. So if that's pretty much what the consensus is there a motion to approve this calendar, keeping all of the dates, including August 18th and December 15th? Mike? Second. Norina? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Is there anyone opposed? Say that. Seven. With all of the dates. All right, next, we've been having some discussion about the board committee list. And it's kind of like putting a big puzzle together, so hopefully everybody's happy with their assignment. I do note that, and I think I might have written this in one of my annual reports, that the personnel committee is the same committee that has been over the past year, just because at the last labor management meeting, it was suggested that the personnel committee should stay the same because of summer dates for negotiations. So that's why they're the same, and it was, I think according to the bylaws, the committee is supposed to change in September, on the September meeting, is that? I don't know, I'm not a bylaw expert, but.
You have up until, but you, if we can get the job done here, it's fine.
So I think by the bylaws, though, it has to change in this, on the September meeting,
By September.
with it,
I think it's by September.
by September. Well, I guess realistically, it's gonna be the September meeting, because I don't think we're gonna have a special meeting just to change that, but I think that might change. I know there was a number of people who had a lot of interest in personnel, so that might change some other committees as well, when we change the personnel committee in September. So if you were really would rather have a different assignment, then if you could let me know before September, and maybe we could redo the list when we redo the personnel committee. So that's just a little aside.
Kathy, we're not approving these at this meeting?
Yes, we are. We're approving this list. We are approving this list. I am just saying that in September, we'll reapprove a list because the personnel committee will change in the September meeting. Understand?
I have a question on that, because when you're in negotiations, why would you change your negotiating team midstream, so to speak? That doesn't seem to make any sense.
That's why she's proposing it would change in September. The assumption is, will we be done by then?
I thought that was the bylaws that,
Says the president shall appoint the chair and other members of each standing committee and assignment shall be approved by the board no later than the September meeting. So
I did see some dates floated for negotiations that were in September. I don't know enough about it to know if we will be done, but I assume that's why.
we may not be.
okay, all right, well, I'm not sure exactly what's going on with the personnel committee, but right now it's the same committee, so.
Yeah.
So do I have a motion to approve the board committee list for 2022 to 23 as currently constituted? Marcia, I need a second. Alish?
Do we have a discussion on that?
Sure. Absolutely.
I think there's been a lot of discussion before on people, being placed on committees, given whatever they feel like their skills are or what they would bring to the respective committee.
Mhm.
Can we just get an understanding of how the committees were formed?
Well, I asked people to send me their preferences, and to the best of my ability, I think I put everyone on the committee they requested, with the exception of personnel, because I know a lot of people requested personnel, but we're staying with the same committee. So Like I said, it was kind of like putting a little puzzle together because I did have everyone's preferences, because I did ask for that. And I don't think there were any committees that were too large. It was pretty balanced in terms of people's, and I did fill in a couple of committees with, people that didn't necessarily request them just because I needed an extra person and maybe we only had, I had 3 requests, so, hopefully everyone got their committee that they put as their priority committees. So that's how I did it this year. So I don't think the president always asked people. I think more people were more assigned. So I tried to ask people this year and figure out like where they would prefer to be.
Traditionally, prior to Caitlin, you know, people would sort of trade off. I'd like to be on this, I'd like to be on that. And, you know, you have support people on the committee. So it was only like 1 or 2 administrations ago that the president decided to put who on what committee. And there was a lot of problems with that. So, you know, I think we're starting in the right direction by asking people what, like you said, what their strengths are or whatever they wanted to do, but,
We do have a lot of committees, so.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of, and even with, 2 of the ad hoc committees, going away, which was the ad hoc cafe committee and the ad hoc design committee, folded into building and grounds. We still have, I just kept the ad hoc COVID action committee just because, you know, something might come up, so that we need to discuss that, in regards to, COVID procedure, so. Other than that, I think it's pretty much all our standing committees. And
Well, you said they might shuffle anyway when the personnel gets redone, right?
yeah,
So maybe.
I just had a question.
yeah, I have a question on that one. So I'm just, go ahead. You-
Oh, I don't know. I just wanted to make sure that, you know, that people could say, my skills, you know, are better used in this one and, you know, not just placed into whatever, like they had no idea about.
well, I know you're still chair of personnel.
Yeah,
because
but
it's
I
the same
expressed
committee.
that, yeah, I
So I
expressed
think
that.
I put you as chair of labor management too, because it's a very similar committee.
Yeah, well, I'm involved in both anyway with the
So-
negotiations, so that's.
So hopefully that's okay. I mean,
It's not for me personally. I just want to make sure that people's, not just interests, but skills are represented in the committees themselves, so they can make an impact. Like, I know I was on the finance committee last year, but I really didn't have much to offer. I mean, I can do basic math, but, you know, I can't budget.
okay, well.
Again, Kath, I'm still trying to wrap my head around, you know, with negotiations. I think they already have like 6 or 7 dates where people are going to be meeting. So if you're on the personnel committee and you have invested all this time, and then at the end, you're asked to come off the committee, it seems like you could just do this for the year and then come next year when things are, all the contracts are settled, then if no people, you know, want to come on, fine, but to change midstream, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head. Why-
Right now, we're not proposing a change. So that's
You're saying in
somewhere in the future, okay? So you don't have to worry about it right now. Because right now, it's not, on this committee list, it's not changing.
You're saying that it has to change by September? Is that
No,
what?
it has to be approved by September.
Oh, so
Maybe
we're
the
There's nothing that says
now.
it's gonna change.
So if we're approving them now,
Kathy's saying
then
it's
they're
gonna
not
change.
changing
Says no
for the
later
rest
than
of the year.
September. That's what the board.
Well, my question is, if we're approving them now, they don't have to be approved again in September, right? So
Yeah,
that.
I think what Kathy was trying to say, if for some reason negotiations had been done, there was still time to honor some, she got requests that couldn't be honored because she's holding the committee to the same through negotiations.
Okay.
And because they may not be done in September, she's in this sort of like people expressed interest, the work will be done later, the bylaws say by September, it'll probably be after. So we just have a little bit of a sticky situation. I don't think anyone's suggesting that we change the composition before negotiations are complete.
Or any of these,
Or any of them, right? No, these are all adjusted. The only one that didn't shift at all is, well, the nominating committee we voted, and that did slightly change, but the personnel committee, just acknowledging that this is a repeat from last year, but for good reason.
Is there anything in the bylaws that indicates we are not allowed to amend this after September? Can we not move to have this amended if the committee decides to change?
no, the
Yeah.
bylaws only, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I agree. Yeah, as I read the bylaws, I think it's just telling us we have to have our committee set by September. So as long as we've voted it by September, there's nothing that says we can't change it later. We've had to do that in the past when people leave
I
the
see
board or
that,
things like
yeah.
that.
The board has a lot of flexibility, I mean.
I just.
So we'll just revisit after negotiations are complete.
But again, that September date was in there because for years there was no August meeting. So the committees would be proposed in July and people would have time to think about it. And if there was some shifting to go around or people said, well, gee, could we do it in September? Then they do it then.
Right, it's just that some of these committees obviously were very, had almost no members because of, they were full of, people who are no longer on the board, so we have to at least, vote in new committees.
Did we have a second on this proposal? Did we already
Yes, we
move
have a
and second it? Can we vote?
Either you or I.
Yeah, Marcia was first.
Marcia and Leash.
Okay, so we can
Marcia made the
vote.
motion, Leash seconded. Okay, so, all in favor of the board committee list as proposed, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Okay. So the list is approved. 7:20. Now, all right, now the next one, I think, is interesting. I don't really understand this one very well, the holiday closings.
Like we're at the resolution or just one day, right?
28 hours.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have something in there.
On the agenda, it was resolution to adjust work days.
Oh, okay, all right, so. Okay, yes, and that was something that maybe Natalie can speak to.
If Tim Riley, if you want to speak about the workday adjustment for New York State retirement, if not, I can.
Do we have a copy of the resolution? Is it on the table?
Tim?
We can't hear you.
Wait, my microphone is not working.
Do you want to give us the clip?
Yeah, so basically, this has been going on for a couple of years. The New York State reporting has been off for our employees, mostly because on Sundays, it's a truncated day. It's not a full 7.5 work hour day. And in New York State retirement, we have reported that our official workday is 7.5. So to compensate for that over the years, we have moved stuff around in our software to try to make things financially sound for our employees. So like they would get like time and a half if they worked a Sunday because it wasn't a full day, but then they would get a comp day. So they were working an extra day in the week. But the issue is that at the end of the year, they were not getting a full year of credit at New York State retirement. It was coming up short. So over the years, if you're getting ready to retirement, it's a difference of a couple of months. So we were trying to do some research and figure out how we could adjust that. We put a call into New York State retirement multiple times, and we also called our friends over at Bethlehem Public Library because they're the most identical to us. And it came down to we need to adjust what is legally our workday. It doesn't change how many hours people are working. It's just what we are reporting to New York State Retirement. So Tim Riley did some facts and figures to figure out what that number is, and it's 6.8. So we're looking for the board to make a resolution to adjust our work schedule for New York State Retirement to 6.8. And then we're going to adjust that in our software for payroll. And then Tim's going to call New York State Retirement. We're going to get that retroactively fixed for our employees so they can have full years of credit.
So you didn't have specific resolution language?
No.
Something like it is resolved to that the workday will be adjusted to 6.8 hours
For New York State reporting, yes.
From New York State
for
report.
New York State reporting.
Doesn't affect pay or anything like that. It's just for New York State reporting so we can get that number rounded.
Okay, and I remember that from the labor management
Yep.
meeting that people's retirement was several months later than they otherwise should have been.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so
Is that actually the question? Is that what was decided with the staff too? Because I remember they wanted you guys to call there and then maybe have a presentation from the New York State Department.
In general, they would just like for onboarding purposes and stuff like that, they would just like yearly someone from New York State Retirement to come and express, like why New York State Retirement is good, why you should sign up for it.
But for this particular issue, I thought they said, well, wait, let's just have a meeting with them and see what they say. Or have a call. Wasn't that the
Yeah,
last thing?
Tim Riley has been calling them and has it cleared up with them, that we
So
just
that
have
is the
to.
right result.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, great.
Right, he resolved it, because
Yes,
you read it right, we did discuss
Mhm.
reaching out to
Yes.
them. So he did resolve it.
he did call, yes.
So
From their perspective, they don't care what you're,
No, not at all. It's between, I believe, I can't believe they said, I can't remember if they said 6 or 6.5, but that's what considered full-time workday is. So we're going with 6.8.
and so this benefits the employees because this adds to their retirement time.
Yes,
It just gets them on the right day.
Yeah,
it gets
and
them 1.0 for a year,
except the
so.
current 7.5,
Mhm.
they might have to retire because it's fractions or something.
Right.
They
I think
might
it was
have to
coming up like
retire
0.98 or 0.97 or
They
whatever
have
it
to work
was.
2 or 3 months more
Yeah.
to get full retirement benefits.
Right.
So are there two parallel systems of record keeping then? One internal of actual hours worked and another reported to the state?
Correct. So our software Paylocity, it tracks our hours and does our payroll, and it automatically sends a report to New York State Retirement.
So those do not need to be reconciled, the two. In other words, the actual hours worked and the hours reported for purposes of retirement. Are they one and the same?
So the difference is hours and days. This is allowing us to define a day here at Guilderland Public Library as 6.8 hours.
Right.
So the hours will still remain the same in the system. It's just that report to the state will take those hours, and 6.8 is considered. It's not an hourly wage or anything like that. It's just defining what a workday is here, which is 6.8. Part of it is the library hours themselves.
Yes.
Don't allow for anyone to work a full day.
On a
If we
Sunday.
on a Sunday, if we define the length of a workday to be longer, then it's possible.
There's no issue in terms of like labor contracts or,
No, because their hours aren't changing. This is just a definition
Yeah, this
for
is simply for New York State
retirement
retirement.
purposes. You have to have a certain number of days.
This was really a Sunday problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about a double set of books and fraud, that's not the case.
Yeah.
That's not what's going on. It's to allow full benefit for folks to be able to retire.
right, I mean, I totally understand what the
Purpose is.
result or purpose of it is. I was just trying to understand whether, well, I think I get it.
So how long are employees typically working on a Sunday?
I believe it's 4.5 hours.
And with this 6.8 number, what is that? Is that over a week or a pay period, or like when do they,
That's the definition of the day.
right? So how do they calculate how many days a person has earned toward the retirement? Like, I mean, because if they're working 4 hours on Sunday, that's not 6.8 or 7.5, but I'm assuming you say that you take their hours over some period of time, and then if it's how many 6.8 fit
Tim
in.
Riley knows the algorithm of that, but that's exactly right. It's a certain number of days, and that was oh, there it is. Thank you.
Read it, I can't.
Yeah, I can't read it.
The library can communicate to the New York State a work day of 68 hours per day using 6.8 will fix this. There should be no issue from labor contract. Oh, wait, there's more about that.
Above that, it says the purpose is to give a full day credit for the Sunday short day so that you don't get penalized in retirement credit.
Credits.
I think credits that he meant.
Yeah.
The adjustment will be reporting, but the workday remains 7.5. The library can communicate to the New York State a workday of 6 to 8 hours per day using 6.8 will fix this. There should be no issue from a labor contract. I think he meant to say.
All right. So I think I get what's happening. So if somebody works 4 7.5-hour days, and then they work 1 4-hour day, you add that up, that's 34 hours for the week, and you divide that by 5, and that's 5 6.8-hour days, and then that counts. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it would be a resolution to adjust the workday to 6.8 hours for the purpose of New York State reporting. Okay.
State
Retirement
retirement
reporting.
system
Yes.
reporting.
New York State Retirement System reporting. Okay. So that would be, all right. Resolution to adjust workday to 6.8 hours for the purpose of New York State Retirement reporting.
Employees retirement system.
Employees retirement.
That was my first job out of law school, so.
Okay.
I make the motion.
I second.
Who was it second?
Vanessa.
Okay, great. All right. All in favor of this motion? Please signify by saying aye. Anyone opposed? All right. The adjustment of workday out.
I'd just like to say that I hope when I get to retirement age, that my retirement won't be put off or postponed because of some sort of error like this, so I'm happy to fix this.
It's happened actually, and the answer is.
Heartbreaking.
People have, seriously, people have retired based on what they were told by the retirement system. And the retirement system was incorrect.
Yeah.
And the retirement system is making funds its errors, right? So people had to go back on the.
So it's a good
Not a pretty
benefit.
picture.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Thanks for all that. The language to make it more specific. All right. Now we are on to the holiday and closings calendar. Can you explain this, Sam?
Yeah, so up at the top, there was a question about whether the library should close an hour early, just because we were noticing that the ratio of staff to patrons was 1-to-1. It was just dead here the last hour. So I was charged with asking other libraries in our system, if they have adjusted their hours because of COVID, and a lot of them are closing at 8 o'clock now. So it was just a suggestion if we wanted to think about closing at 8.
And the additional holidays?
No.
So this was to get closer to what Bethlehem Library is doing. They close early on Black Friday and on New Year's. Oops, what's the other one? Oh,
Thanksgiving Eve.
Thanksgiving Eve, yeah. So that's the same too. So we were looking to kind of match them, Black Friday to close early as well.
Well, it's interesting because your predecessor, I had quite an argument with her about giving Juneteenth as a holiday. And I think I remember being told that new holidays are subject to negotiations.
Yes. Yes.
I don't think there are any new holidays on here, though. They're just closing
Yeah.
early closing is the.
No.
October 9th is listed. in
Well, it's
blue.
renamed.
Yeah, that's what we're
That's
asking
listed
for is
holiday.
to
That's,
rename
that's
it.
the only reason they're usually closed on the former Columbus Day.
No,
Yeah.
Bethlehem is open on Columbus Day.
What
We're
were,
looking to change it to Indigenous Peoples' Day.
but were we previously open or closed?
We were open.
So that's
you
a
are
new
asked that
closing.
is-
So that's a new closing. And Black Friday, is that a new closing as well? Because it's listed.
We're asking to close early.
Oh, well, that's listed as a closing on here. It
My
doesn't say
apologies.
early.
And indigenous people.
We're asking just to change the name.
Well,
So that's not a
it's-
close, it's
no.
just a name
Yeah,
change.
so they're not understand the short.
So it's not, you're not saying that you would close on Indigenous Peoples' Day? It's just,
So
Name change.
this is my mistake. I didn't give the updates to Jenna. So I'm asking for Columbus Day to be recognized as Indigenous Peoples' Day on our calendar. We're gonna stay open. And we're asking to close early on Black Friday and close early on New Year's Eve
And Thanksgiving.
and Thanksgiving Eve.
so you want, well, Black Friday is listed, is all this,
So 3 early closures and a name change.
Correct.
Yeah, could we possibly postpone this discussion and put it into our executive session regarding the holiday closings and all?
well, I don't really know if it's, I mean, we could postpone, we could,
Make sure that fits the criteria for executive.
no, I was gonna say we could defer voting on it and send it back.
Yeah, we can give
The
you
reason
an
why-
updated
Why I'm
request.
saying that, these issues have been brought up in the preliminary negotiations, and obviously we can't discuss that in public. And so we shouldn't be making, to me, any of these changes, until the full board can sort of get updated on, perhaps,
Well, I think
Well, it
the
sounds
board
like-
can set the date, how the staff is compensated, that's negotiations.
Well, but I think, time off is also a, well, I mean, at least I was told when we were talking about Juneteenth, that time off is, a negotiations issue.
Yes. it
So,
is,
so,
absolutely.
I mean, so I'm thinking that, we might not want to do these things right now. I don't know, I don't think they meet the criteria for the executive session. It's just, I think it's just.
Can I ask quickly?
Yeah.
What's our, I know things could change, but what is our current expectation of when the negotiations are expected to finish, to be closed? I know there's some dates scheduled, but do we have any idea of when we're thinking that there's going to be a contract in place?
The furthest date that we have scheduled is the first week of September. So if everything went well, then I would say hopefully in September.
So it seems to me that the only thing that's, the first thing that's coming up, if the Indigenous Peoples' Day, if that's just a day that's the library is staying open, so that's not a change in hours or anything. The first real change in hours is not until the day before Thanksgiving. So I think we have plenty of time to put this off and vote on any changes to the schedule over what's the existing, this holiday schedule. We can put that off until later and hopefully until after the negotiations are finished and we see what has been decided there. So I would be in favor of putting off any of those later changes.
Can we vote on the name change?
Yeah, I agree.
Or do you want us to vote on the hours as well? I mean, like, those are sort of two separate issues.
Yeah, so we were asked to do some research. Someone asked the question, I don't know who, if we should close at 8 o'clock because we had a lot of staff on between 8 and 9 and not a lot of people in the building.
But can I just address that particular point? We're sort of basing that on, we've basically been almost closed for 2 years, And so I can remember meetings here that were going on beyond 9 o'clock and literally the librarians were trying to kick people out because the kids were studying and people were doing research and stuff, and it wasn't dead. Now, I think if we give this a year, under normal circumstances, and you find the same data, I'd have no problem with that. But to base it on, people not having been here between 8 and 9 the last couple of years, I hesitate at that. So I would hope that we could just give it a year, let's see what happens, maybe even a half a year. And just see what the flow is as people are starting to come back. I mean, the statistics look really good for this month. And hopefully, they will continue to begin using the library to its fullest. So I certainly would want to make that change right now.
They have summer hours from July and August, and also regular hours. Would you think that maybe summer hours should be shorter, or maybe not regular hours?
So this issue of the hours and shortening the hours and moving it from 9 back to 8, this came up last year. And when it came up last year, Tim gave us a presentation and gave us the data on the number of people entering and leaving during those hours. And we kind of looked at that and discussed, and there was a bit of discussion on that. And after that discussion, we decided we're going to leave it at 9 o'clock. Now, and I'm not saying we have to stick with that, we can always revisit it, but I'm kind of, after having seen the data and having that discussion and everything and having a presentation, and on the basis of all that, we decided to leave it at 9. And then now just being presented with it again with no new data and no new, we don't have any numbers here that we're not kind of seeing it. I would want to see, at the very least, kind of a similar presentation that we got last year to really see, and reconsider it rather than just, being told, oh, well, let's reconsider this again without any new information.
So
I would agree with Mike and Barbara. I do remember that presentation, and we decided to table it. And I think Barbara makes a very good point that hopefully this will be a full school year in person. And I mean, I have a granddaughter who learned virtually nothing this year, frankly. And so kids may be going back to school and having to catch up. And the library is a good resource for them, and they study here. So
Well, and
I agree with that.
And the study rooms hopefully will be open, because those used to be very, very popular, for tutoring and.
And I remember your
like that.
point, Mike.
Yeah.
I remember your point. We talked about this last year.
And the study rooms, I mean, they're open now, but they were closed for most of the school year, so people aren't used to that as an option to
I
come
think
in.
the whole school year, they didn't really open up
Yeah, when was it?
for
that they
finals
opened up?
even. I don't believe so.
I don't remember.
We were
exactly.
opened up for a little bit and then we closed again because COVID spiked.
Okay, yeah, so,
I'm really familiar with what's open right now, because I've been here on weekends with my kids at the playroom and the kids section. And I still hear people say, oh my gosh, it's open. I didn't even know that. So they're
Right.
just getting used to, oh, what's this new space? So I would agree to not change the hours, or not vote on it at least
I
right
agree.
now.
Do we have to
Can I make a
have a
motion that
motion
we
to
change
table
the
this?
name?
Or just,
Can I make a motion that we change the name of Columbus Day to Indigenous Peace Day?
I second.
You're in favor of that?
I am.
Oh, okay.
Could I
Just one.
That's why I'm making a motion to change the name.
A discussion on that, Kat?
no, this is just to change.
Just to change.
Columbus Day to Indigenous
Right.
Peoples'
Yep,
Day.
no change to the hours.
So that's
Just the name.
whole
Yep.
motion. Okay, sure.
Why would we, I would have no problem adding Indigenous Peoples' Day, as many of the school districts have. I know Albany Academy has on their calendar Columbus Day, Indigenous People Day, and a lot of other areas have gone to that. But to just simply, without notifying our very heavy Italian community in this area, we're the only school district that I believe teaches Italian and has a full complement every single year. To me, it would sort of be a slap in the face to people if you don't recognize both people that are connected with that holiday. So to just change it to that and to strike Columbus Day, I would not be in favor.
Okay, well, since we have a motion, I'll take the roll then.
I think Jenna wanted to say something.
Oh,
Why would we have it on here if we're not closing?
So we have a public events calendar and it does say other holidays on it, like it says President's Day and all that. So I just want to make sure that the public information that's out there, that we're correct, politically correct about those.
Could someone just, I'm not familiar with this issue. Could someone, I mean, because it sounds like it could potentially play into the culture wars a bit.
You think?
Is the idea that this is a repudiation of Columbus? Is this the idea that, I mean, I'm just trying to understand what the full context is here. Can someone address that? Because I really don't know anything about this.
Why do we want to honor somebody that, murdered, raped, and killed a bunch of indigenous people?
So it is a
That's what the-
repudiation of,
For me personally, it is. I'm Italian. I would get rid of it. Yeah, I don't care.
There also was a proclamation
From the governor.
from the governor and the president.
Yes. And I work federally, and it's not called Columbus Day anymore. It's called Indigenous Peoples Day.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Well, I just, and this is not to, dodge the issue, but it seems a bit odd to me that, how we're calling this the holiday on like the library calendars or whatever, when it's not, like, we're not voting on a closure or the hours or whatever. It doesn't seem like this is something that should be a board level decision. This is just, how the library is choosing to kind of put its calendar together. And it seems like micromanagement to me, to be honest. And if the library, as a library administration, wants to kind of rename how they're labeling on the calendar as Indigenous Peoples Day, I think that's perfectly fine. I just don't think this is the kind of thing, this just seems too tiny. We're not voting on closing the library for a day or anything. We're just talking about how it gets listed on something on the website. So I don't understand why it's even a board level decision, but I mean.
Well, because you're hopefully reflecting community and, at least an awareness on the part of the community. If there's an outpouring of support for striking it, fine. But just to drop something on the public, to me, without notice, without discussion.
With all due respect, we're behind, quite frankly. So maybe we should just vote, and if it passes, if there's opposition, then it won't pass.
I'll take the roll. Tony,
Yes.
Marcia,
Yes.
Leash,
Yes.
Barbara.
No.
Norina.
Yes.
Ted,
yes.
Vanessa,
Yes.
Yes.
Cory, yes. And Mike.
Oh, yes, I'd like to say that I don't like that discussion was cut off when people were still talking. I don't think it's appropriate to start the roll when there was still discussion on the phone.
The one thing that would be kind of nice, and I'm comfortable with my yes. And this is micromanaging in terms of library doings, but it would be nice if there was on that day some kind of explanation in the library explaining why this is what it is and no longer what it was. And just to raise awareness about the reasons for it. I just think that might be helpful. And I don't mean as a defense of Columbus or whatever. I'm just saying this is a library. It's a place for enlightenment and education. Be nice to just lay it out there, and it doesn't have to be a full-on attack on Christopher Columbus, but I would I'd benefit from something like that.
Absolutely. I want to raise a point that Mike made, though. Are you suggesting, Mike, that this is not a board decision to make, but really an administrative one?
I think this is more appropriate, and to respond to,
I don't know the answer to the question, but is that what you raised?
that's what I'm suggesting, and to respond to what Barbara had said before, yes, it's a public, I guess it's a public statement or whatever, but there's any number of things on the library website or displays throughout the library, featured books and things like that, where the library is expressing something to the public. And those are generally up to the library administration, and the board doesn't kind of stick its nose into those kind of things. And it's one thing when we're talking about, we need to vote on the closings. We need to vote on when the library is not going to be open and providing any services to the public. I think that's definitely part of our responsibility. But when we're just talking about how they're labeling a particular day on the calendar that they're publishing on the website, I think that's up to the library administration. Regardless of feelings about this particular, what's the right way that this holiday should be named, the general principle that's not the level that this board should be kind of micromanaging. That's
So what would you suggest, that we make a recommendation to the administration that this be done? I think the vote is that people
honestly,
want to have the name changed.
my assumption is that if this board did, I don't think, is there any reason, absent any action by this board, that the library couldn't list it that way on their calendar as Indigenous Peoples' Day, if that was the intent of the administration?
I think we were only responding to what was brought to
Yeah.
us by staff. So I don't think anyone here on the board sought out to insert ourselves, but I think we were just responding to the request.
Right, and like our role for reporting to the board is no surprises, full transparency. This is something
So I
that
decided
we've
to look on
talked
the
about,
calendar,
we're just.
so
Yeah.
to me, by the way, I voted yes.
Yeah. So is it
Remember to
the
vote.
administration's intent to rename Columbus Day Indigenous People Day?
Yeah, on our public
Is that
event
your-
calendar, we would like it to say Indigenous.
That's your intent?
And I love your idea of doing educational programs on that day.
We talked about something similar when the Juneteenth discussion was
Yes.
happening, so I
Yeah.
think
Juneteenth,
this is
my first board meeting.
appropriate.
For sure. But it's your,
Yeah, well, because, when I saw this in our board packet, my assumption was because that, it was listed as on the closings calendar, on here, that we're just talking about, okay, this is another day that there's wanted to be discussion about closing, but if that's not the issue, it's not about closing, then it seems odd that it's even, on our list here,
Just a little asterisk.
Yeah,
It's
I
a
mean-
blue, so,
And I
you know.
apologize, that was my fault. I
No,
did not
it's
give
okay.
Jenna the updated form.
But yeah, there are numerous other, holidays in the year that are not, where the library doesn't close, but they're recognized to one degree or another, either by the state or the federal government or by various religious traditions or whatever, that may be listed on, the library's calendar. I don't think anyone would be surprised if there was some notation that this was some day, this is, X day or Y day that's, recognized, whatever, but the library is still open, it's still open for business. The board doesn't have to vote on what the library labels it on the calendar.
So is there a policy or provision that sort of spells out like the line for autonomy between administration and the board? Because it might be a gray area. It might just be like, this is a good cover your bases. And then we can just say, hey, this is not, and then we just sign off like, this is not a thing we need to vote on. You know what I mean? It just.
There's a lot of. There's a whole bunch of material in like the trustees handbook.
I know, I know.
I know, but there are a lot of gray areas too. I don't know. Yeah,
would we be comfortable?
No, go ahead.
Oh, no. I do agree. And I work very closely with boards that this is an administrative decision.
Okay.
And
We're
I
just
do
trying to
think
be
there's
full
some,
transparency.
but, and I agree. I think it's great that they're doing a full transparency. I don't think it requires a vote by any means. I think it's just moving it back over to administration.
We could do
The
it-
rest of
go
it.
ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, I think in principle, I agree with Mike. But I do want to say that I'm happy to voice my vote and support in changing the name. So I appreciate the opportunity to endorse the change.
Yeah, what I was gonna say is maybe that's what we should do,
Sure.
because it's an important change. At least it is to me.
Me too.
And given the vote, that seems to be, so maybe we can, what we can do is say, we understand the administration has plans to have an educational program, understanding how this is going to be changed to Indigenous People Day, and that the board supports the administration's decision to do so.
So is there like a
Would that
happy
help?
medium where you just include it in the director's report? And then
Yeah,
just
we could do
report
that
like,
too.
hey, the
We did
staff
that.
discussed this
Yeah.
and this is what we look to do, and we go,
Yeah.
cool, thanks for.
Yeah,
letting us know."
anything like that.
Yeah, that would be a cool place to put it, and then you're transparent without us having.
We did have a motion and a second, and we did take a poll, so.
No, we're good. I'm just
Yeah.
suggesting like if there's other things like this
But I
that,
think it's a good point that we should make sure that we're evaluating that we need to be taking votes when we take votes. So I can
But I
definitely,
think the principle is that this is an the
completely.
the lines between.
But
what we
but
do
I
and-
think it's a broader issue for
I
us
agree.
personally, and so I do appreciate Mike bringing it up, and we might want to incorporate that thought process when things are brought before us, so that we can make sure we're appropriately exercising our governance responsibility and not creeping into management.
And I think there's a good line there with endorsement versus approval
Yep.
as well.
Yeah, so an endorsement might work.
And just on that, what Vanessa was saying, I think, it's just, I don't want to be kind of setting a precedent or, on the broader principle that before the library can, for example, recognize some new holiday or whatever on the library calendar, that they need to somehow come to us and get their okay. I think that's just something that, if they want to list that this day is also such and such a holiday and it's not one that we've previously recognized, I think that's something that they have the discretion in their, as the administration of the library to do without having to come to us for that.
For the rest of this, draft, do we need to vote on, postponing this, vote on this calendar, or just not vote on the rest of it?
We just don't
Hold
vote
it.
on it.
Don't carry them.
Well, I think, do we,
After negotiations, right?
we have to approve at the very least. We have Labor Day coming up, we want to make sure that the holidays.
2023.
What's that?
This is just for 2023.
Oh, this is for 2023. Okay, never mind then. Never mind, we got plenty of time.
Nothing's coming up.
I was thinking,
We
yeah,
can save.
the library year, not the calendar year. Yeah, okay. Good.
All right, so we will not take a vote on the rest of it. For that to future. So we'll move on. All right. Now, the last item under new business is the personnel administrator position. Description of description. This person primarily doing HR.
Yeah, so one of my first duties that was assigned, I was charged with figuring out how to get HR staff into the library. So I did an audit of the Bethlehem Library and spoke with Tracy Shane, their HR person over there, and their director, Jennifer Patrick. We had multiple meetings going over what duties their HR person does. This library is almost identical to us in every way. So it was very, very in-depth look at everything that Tracy had done for them. I think if anything, their staff is just 5 people more. We also work very closely with John Farrell at Civil Service to figure out what the best title would be. So together we came up with this job description. Civil service position.
This position's already budgeted.
So and somebody can verify this, but I believe my recollection was when we did the budget, we specifically budgeted for this position with the understanding that
We developed the.
that there was a possibility, because at that time there was debate back and forth. Do we need this position? Do we not? Whatever, but we budgeted for it so that in the event that we decided to create this position, we had already covered it.
Thank you.
I just had one question, which is so which of the current employees are currently performing these duties that would be taken over by the new? So it's all on you? Okay.
But I really want this to pass.
I had thought in the past, and maybe I'm misremembering, that some of these duties were previously being done by the,
By contract.
I thought.
Carol,
Yeah, well, yeah.
Carol, not-
are we still doing that? Do we still have that relationship? It was contractual, right?
Yeah, Carol is assisting Tim Riley when needed on payroll and fiscal things. Their there are some shared things in Paylocity with onboarding that Tim Riley and I have looked at, but the majority of that HR stuff was supposed to be Margaret, my predecessor. So
Right.
that's why, like, when I first came here, I was charged with figuring out exactly what we needed for HR.
Yeah, and I will say that I've talked to them
Oh,
about
yes,
this
and
as
we-
well.
I'm so sorry.
No, no,
Yes,
no,
She's
it's
been
okay.
excellent.
So my background is HR. I'm a professional of human resources, HR. And I also did a little bit of research on my end and spoke to somebody at the state level too, to make sure we align on the pay band and everything like that too. And I will say that I endorse and support somebody in this role because HR can be such a prickly business. And without being like an actual trained HR professional and keeping up with all the different laws and regulations and things like that, it could become a liability role fast. So I just want to throw my support behind getting like an actual, our own professional for this, because it, you know, even when you contract out to companies, it's not very personal and they can miss some things because they're handling a bunch of clients en masse. So I support like an individual
And
here
especially
day to
with
day that gets to know folks.
the New York State retirement issue we just had. I mean, this was Tim Riley, Tim Wiles, and myself constantly working on this, and just think of all the hours and the money if we had a professional HR person. This wouldn't have been a problem for years.
Should we have a motion
And I
and
just
and
have
a
a
second?
quick further
Just-
question.
Yeah,
Is this salary realistic?
That's what was budgeted.
That wasn't my question.
It's
Is it realistic?
When we budgeted, didn't we not say it could be part-time if we were to do this? Because basically, when we built the new building, one of our promises to our constituents was that we weren't going to add staff. And we now have 1.5 finance people. And now we're saying we're gonna add another administrator, be it full-time or half-time. And yet over the years, you know, we functioned, basically your position doing this work with the financial person as well. That was only part-time, but now we have full-time, 1.5 full-time financial people. And I just, I can see where a professional, trained HR person might be able to, you know, do the laws and things a little bit better, but on a full-time basis, I'm struggling with that.
And again, I've worked very closely with the Bethlehem Library, and they are very similar to us, same size, and Tracy is full-time, and she actually has a full-time assistant as well.
So is this salary realistic?
so
Compared to, Tracy has been in her position for a while, so she does make more than this, but the top salary is pretty decent, I would say.
So when I did my research, it aligned with somebody having a couple of years experience. So this would not be like
Well, you'd
like
have
a
to have
PHR
couple of-
level
yeah.
or something like that, but this is, you know, it's like a HR generalist. This is comparable with what they would get at the state
Okay, thanks.
for the same position. Yep.
So do you need a motion to?
A motion to create the position, and does somebody want to make that motion? Marcia? For a second. Discussion.
Poor Kathy was trying to get us to make the motion in second before our discussion, and we wouldn't let her.
Well, you know, you can have discussion before, but it's a little bit more.
I'm very much in support of this position. I think the feedback we've had from staff, although we were getting by, I don't think we were doing a very good job with these functions, so there was room for improvement. And I'm always in support of supporting professional activities and responsibilities as professional, so I'm in support of the role.
Barbara?
I guess I would just caution all of us that as you add staff, you have a 2% tax cap. You have negotiations for your major unions here going on this year. And considering inflation and everything that's going on in the world, your salary line inevitably is going to be going up. And remember, you have a 2% tax cap. So if all your money now is going into personnel, your programs, your other, maybe even your facility, even though this is a brand new facility, you're gonna have to weigh and measure. We just can't keep adding staff, increasing salaries and still be under the 2% tax cap and still, provide services and materials and IT and other services, to your community. So it's really gotta be a balancing act. And I don't know if you're voting on a full-time position or a part-time position or,
It's 35 hours a week, yeah.
yeah, that's basically full-time.
So when you were comparing like the two libraries, are we pretty comparable like financially as well?
Yep.
Like, so they,
Their budget is 200,000 more.
They have the same tax cap.
they have, okay,
They are a school district library,
okay.
same size staff.
So it looks like they were able to
Mhm.
navigate that. Okay.
This is approved in this year's budget.
Yeah, we had already
So
approved
we
it.
would not be increasing it.
Great. Anyone else?
Yeah, I do, I see both sides of this. I think there is a lot of value in having a dedicated HR person. On the other hand, there is concern about just having kind of like, administrative bloat, where you have like the administrative people who are necessary to run it, but are not the people who are actually directly providing services to the public themselves. And that just adds overhead and adds, other costs. I think, I think Barb's concerns are very real. I'm probably lean in favor of voting for it, but I do definitely see her concerns.
Can I ask a question? I'm a little confused because I'm under the assumption that if we approved a budget that budgeted for the position, that we can afford it. And so maybe you can help me understand the financial hesitation on approving the position description for a position that's already been approved in the budget.
So two things. So this was specifically discussed when we did the budget, that by budgeting that money in, we were not committing to actually add that position that was up for discussion.
No, I understand that.
Right. But it's just, the idea is, yes, it's in this particular year, we have that money set aside for that. It's all budgeted for, but it's, really, we're realistically, we're not going to add this new position and then next year, cut it and get rid of it. I mean, if we're adding it now, we're adding it for the foreseeable future, that we're going to have an extra administrative position in the library. So that's, that's a year after year, a piece of our budget that we're going to budget for every year. And again, it's one position in the scope of our entire budget. It's not that huge a piece, but every little piece that we're adding to our, it's just a consideration. I'm saying on balance, I think it probably makes sense to have this position, but every time we're adding a permanent ongoing, cost to the library, I think it's worth really thinking hard about it. And
I guess
considering it.
just to clarify, because thought I was with you, but then I got a little confused with your
Yep.
explanation. By putting it in the budget,
Yep.
it doesn't necessarily mean that it was affordable going forward. I mean, do we have I guess I don't understand the logic in having a position budgeted. I understand that we agreed that it would be voted separately, but the action of voting on the position line, I was under the impression that the numbers worked.
Right, but every year we have to, put a new budget and put that out to the voters to approve. It's a year after year process. And so for this year, we have that money built into the budget. So the money's in there so we could have this position.
But this isn't like a capital expenditure, like all salary, all personnel positions continue year after year.
Right, so every time we're adding a new one, that's so all the current administrative positions that we already have and that we've already approved and are already there, unless we decide to, downsize in some way or whatever, the expectation is that those are going to continue every year. We're going to have those as a budget item that we have to, do. And so that's it's an ongoing, when we add a new administrative position, there's kind of an expectation that that's going to go on indefinitely. So that's already the case for everything we currently have. If we add a new one, that's a new expense that we're gonna have to meet every single year going forward.
But it's something we revisit every year, right, anyway?
Right, I guess I'm just
Right.
making the point is that
Yes, right,
we,
yeah.
from a financial perspective, already approved this role. We were still working on the details of the position, which we're voting on now. I would just say, I don't think we should add things to the budget if we don't think we can carry, especially personnel, if we don't think we can carry it from year to year. It seems,
But when we discussed this, and this was, discussed, and I don't know to what extent this came, I don't remember at this point whether this particular line item was discussed at the full board level when we brought this up. But in the finance committee meetings, when we were discussing this particular line item, we said, by including this in the budget, we're giving us the possibility of creating this position, but we're not making any commitment they're actually going to do it, because there was disagreement over whether it was necessary. At the time, some people were saying, this is for a library our size, we don't really need a dedicated HR person, it doesn't make sense. There was kind of back and forth people on both sides of it. We said, we'll put the money in, that gives us the option, without messing up our budget, we have the option of adding this position, but we weren't committing to it at that time.
okay.
And so
I
it was just to give
recall
us.
that, so maybe that happened at the committee level. I'm not sure I understood that response.
Tim trying to get in and make it sure some views, he had his hand up, but
He said to Mike's point, as costs continue to rise across all budget lines, this position will add new burden, FYI.
Rise across the budget line, this position will add new burdens. You understand that?
Yeah, I mean, there've been rising costs in all different, across all different things, and that puts a squeeze on all our different, every area of our budget, and so it's less flexibility as we, if we didn't fill this position, that'd be kind of extra money we had budgeted for that could kind of cover if there's shortfalls in other areas. I don't know if that'll happen, I don't know if it's needed, but it's, it's just a consideration.
It's a definite consideration,
But-
without question, but number one, it was put in the budget as a possibility.
Possible.
The budget was approved by the voters. And what we're hearing from administration is that, and I'm just looking, I'm not an HR person, but I'm looking at this list. It seems like it's full-time and a half to me.
How many staff?
And it is at Bethlehem,
And how many staff do we have altogether?
66.
They have 6 HR people.
No, we have
We have
66 employees.
66, Bethlehem
no
is
dedicated
72.
HR.
And they have a full-time and a part-time HR person.
I mean, I've been a dedicated HR person at a company with 10 staff. So, and that was plenty of work because as policies change, it's a lot of training, a lot of stuff you have to keep up on. I haven't been in practice for a couple of years and there's stuff that come up in my HR groups. I'm like, I've never even heard of that. What is that? Because there's different requirements that come down for like training for staff and different policies that change and you have to keep everyone informed. And if you're not doing that on a consistent basis, that's a lot to keep up with. And it's a lot, managing people's PTO and all this stuff in terms of the retirement fund and hitting those requirements. Like I couldn't imagine doing this for like a organization of 66 with no HR person dedicated, because that means you're taking someone else's time that's not a specialist in this to try to be a specialist in this.
HR is.
And it's a lot of, I have to do 60 to maintain the HR 60 hours over 2 years. And that's hard to fit in and it's not my job anymore, but it's a lot of information. Stuff constantly is changing with new DEI things and, different accessibility issues and things like that. So I see the value in it. And I think, obviously if it will need to be discussed down the road, if we do come into budget issues and things like that, discussed at that point, if we can't support that position any longer, right? But at the time, it seems like we can. And the library seems to be continuing to be successful. So I don't foresee like an issue on the horizon where, we already went through the worst of it, right? So I don't know.
I have just a question about the job description. It's just about the role of this position, and just in HR positions that I've interacted with and been familiar with, one of the roles of the HR person has been to kind of be the first, first point of contact for just minor workplace kind of grievances and problems. So if somebody has an issue with their coworker and somebody's doing annoying things or not doing things they should be or whatever, the HR person is kind of the point person on those type of things. I don't necessarily see that in here, so I don't know if that is something that's,
It says involved in employee relations and any grievance matters. So-
where's that?
It's the second, so it's on the
the
back,
second
second
page.
bullet point.
Second bullet point.
So that I read as like mediation, right?
Okay,
Employee
okay.
mediation.
Sexual harassment issues.
Mhm.
Well, then,
Yeah, point of contact for staff or
Yeah.
workplace issue. It's the fourth bullet.
okay, so, oh, I got it.
And the second bullet.
Okay, so it is included in there. I just missed that, I guess, because.
The only thing I would say is because we do deal with a union is maybe making sure somebody has some familiarity with union. Negotiation and issues, that was like a whole section I was very
Yeah, it says
unfamiliar
point-
with.
Yep, point of contact for all staff and admin regarding CSEA contract.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. That's what that is. Cool. That would be my only call out because that's like a whole different piece that not every HR person would know and out of my purview, so. But are we good for a vote?
Any more discussion? All right, I'll take a roll call. The motion to create the personnel administrator. Tony,
Yes.
Marcia,
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes.
Barbara,
No.
Marina.
Yes.
Ted,
Yes.
Vanessa,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
and Mike.
Yes.
And I'm yes. Okay, passes. At 8:19 p.m. So the position is created. Be happy now. Great, so. Any public input?
Oh, no, sorry.
Okay, we have need of an executive session. So, contract for particular people. Do we have a motion to go into executive sessions? Second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, we're enter executive
Can
session.
anyone oppose?
Yeah, to do executive session.
Yeah.
So we have to, I don't know if we can straighten that off.
So yeah, don't start,
Change rooms.
don't start executive.
After you
session.
change seats.
No, they-
Go
no,
into it, but we're not.
Although there are
gonna
only
have
4
any
people
discussions
watching
before.
that. Which made me feel better since I.
Is there any board member? There's no board member virtually, right?
No, but I'm still broadcasting.
Yeah, we gotta get, don't worry about that. Let's hire.
5 minutes from now.
Take that off.
Probably just take a little break.
Oh, there you go. Coffee break.
I did, I'll give it to Kathy, yeah.
The problem I remember the last time is if you said it's already, you can't go back in.